The midnight sky glistened, the woods rustled as the roar of the light breeze casted past. The luminous light reflected as it passed through the creaks of the bulk brunette tree. As the light originated from a not too far cabin, the woods were old-aged, beaten down in an unclean manner. This was the same for the rest of the cabin as far as the exterior was concerned. All kinds of vines and dirt were formed like a base around the cabin, along with patches of mud dotted around the stairwell as it led to the light brown wooden door. Inside was one candle that was lit brightly on the immaculate beige table. This light repelled onto the walls, which expanded the dim, tall shadow that covered the middle end of the wall. Stood next to the table was a woman, middle-aged, her face with worn battle scars. She had her hair curled down to her shoulder. It looked like it had been underwater for days, with grease and sweat packed together as if it had been all mixed up like a casserole on a Sunday afternoon. But nevertheless, her face still carried the charm with those elegant navy eyes. Her belt was buckled around her waist. Going upwards was her shirt, which was black and long-sleeved. On top of her shirt sat her extensive gingerbread coat that dripped down past her legs, creating a cape. Her weighed-down muddy shoes stuck out like a sore thumb among the rest of her clothing. She took a few deep breaths, anxiously, subsequently, then relaxed herself. All the while, she removed her coat and folded it neatly on the table as the coat placed beside the candle. Her shaky hands searched nervously through the pockets of her folded coat. She slowly took out a scratched-up World War II revolver. The woman loosened her buckle. She then placed the revolver inside and then swiftly fastened it back up again. The clock struck midnight. The noise emanated from the bell tower a couple of miles away from the cab. The girl's hand reached beside the beige table, which sat 3 sets of some dark brown drawers. They all featured black knobs. She pulled the first drawer open. The drawer now open. The contents inside revealed all kinds of objects and artifacts. A few used American and British passports, half a dozen memory sticks, another scratched up revolver, and additionally there were some black shades. A loud knock stemmed from outside the cabin. The woman shut the drawers in a hurry. In a panic, she grabbed her revolver. She held her gun in an upright position, ready to be poised at the enemy or friend. She crept to the door, slowly turned the knob and opened it. Open air was more seen than anything as it revealed no one. Not even a whisper was heard. Even in the cold breeze, she looked around, turning her head. She hawked and scanned the open wood that led to some open grassland. She turned her head side to side as her body was sat in one spot. She looked down and spotted there was a note written on paper, used that she noticed was written using a fountain ink pen. The paper was laid on the ground with a clear words that read, "We know where you live, Ruby Lawrn." In shock, her adrenaline ran quicker than a flash of lightning. She took to take out a bullet pack out of her tight jean pocket. Once the pack was out and open, she started to reload her revolver. But in doing so, her hands jolted in fear. She felt like a puppet on a string. She struggled to place the bullets inside. One dropped onto the wooden stairs. It had rolled down and made a loud metal clanging noise, which echoed through the forest. The trees crackled as they started to startle the woman. Her senses enhanced rapidly. Her hand shook as if it could have been used as a chainsaw. Her legs jolted as she could feel the pulse of her own blood as it ran cold in her skin. Her eyes searched through the trees. She started to shout as her voice trembled.
"Hello? Is this a game or something?"
Silence had struck in again, but this time the trees that had crackled before become louder and stronger. The woman knew it wasn't the wind, and she knew for certain someone was out there. She knew what the wind was like on a day like today, for starters, and she had a feeling in her gut that she was being watched. But confusion imploded inside her mind as there were no animals, none that were deadly enough to say the least. A dash of figure engulfed in darkness with a sharp woman's foot ran around the woods. All that could be heard was sounds of leaves that broke and trees that shook within the wood. "Ruby, was sure this was not an animal of any sorts, and she was certain this was not the wind, as strong sounds of all branches and leaves started rippling over each other.
A game? Not at all, Miss Lawrn.
Fear consumed the woman like a cocoon, but a black smoke-like figure that ran through the woods got more and more vivid. The woman was confused and lost sanity along with her ears, playing games as they screamed for nearby help, although within her hands it was a different story, as her hand still had the revolver which was poised into the nearby trees, but the adrenaline that ran through her body made her hands uneasy and shaky. She breathed heavily as her heart pounded out of her chest. She slowly picked up the revolver's bullet that was on the second to last step of the stairs that led to puddles of dry mud splattered around the end. She held the bullet in her right hand, meanwhile in the other was the revolver she loaded. After her oxygen was regained, she concentrated her sight on the unknown perpetrator, although she was uncertain if the shot was going to be clear. The vampire's ghost-like figure got clearer for the woman. She seized her chance. She had the right angle. All she had to do was fire that bullet and everything would be back to normal. She went to shoot, but the vampire ran towards her. The vampire shrieked loudly. On the contrary, she moved silently as she latched onto the woman's neck. She sucked the warm, pulsing blood out of her. The neck bled slowly as the drops descended onto the planks of wood below. The vampire dropped the woman with a loud thud as she landed dead still onto the floor. The vampire laughed madly as she ran back into the forest, silenced valley as she echoed the area around her. The Doctor, played by Wilkingson, featuring Doyer, played by Sara, Hensley, and the Ficer, played by Natalie, Hussey, narrated by Craig Edwards, created by Wilkingson. Doctor Who, Episode 1, Reincarnation. It was the early morning, and the smell of the World War II revolver could be smelt from miles away. Not a natural technique anyone could master, but he wasn't just anyone. A man lied on a small, rugged sofa under a velvet blanket, with a pillow below his head. Asleep and soundly, he sported a black suit. Around his neck sat a red scarf loosely tied. He stood around 6 foot tall, but by the white stainless sneakers, you wouldn't be able to tell if he was taller or not. His face was stubbled, but everywhere else was fresh and clean. He looked in his mid-30s to 40s. His identity was none other than the Doctor. The Doctor woke up urgently in a state of panic as he swept away the blanket to his side and sat up. Without any hesitation or control, his nose smelled gunpowder and gunmetal in the air. The smell was fresh and therefore didn't affect him as much, but nevertheless, it infested his nose. Not fully woken up, the Doctor, confused on where he was, he scanned the room, seeing what he could only describe as an OCD dream. Everything was spotless and organised. A brown door opened. It revealed a young woman stepped into the room, quite remarkably surprised and lost for words. This woman was dressed in casual London clothes. She wore dark blue leggings, her chest not massive but average for a girl of her age. In addition, she was also wearing plain short-sleeved blue t-shirt. Her shoes were muddy around the outskirts, not to mention her short brown streaked black hair, which was coiffed to one side, but some of the hairs hung down her head in a self-conscious condition. From a simple deduction, her hair obviously was being coiffed to one side. It looked like it was to hide what looked like an incision cut from an operation that had looked like she had years ago. The scar didn't seem to have healed properly, as it was wavy and not entirely straight. Doyer stepped next to the glass coffee table. in the front of the sofa, which sat a black remote for the TV, which hung on the wall in black brackets. 2 cup mats sat on either side of the table along with a pen, some paper along with another pen on another side. On each side of both pens, a word printed on red. Movie. Everything on the table were all evenly placed. She awkwardly forgot what she was going to do, but remembered a few seconds later on. Alex moved the chair that was parked up against the wall. She picked up the wooden chair, then proceeded with the following things. She unfolded the chair, placed it on the other side of the coffee table. Alex Doyer sat down and leant in as she carried a concerned and surprised attitude towards the doctor.
You all right, mister? You were lying on the ground in what I can only call a coma for around a few days. I couldn't leave you there in the cold to die. I took you here, my place. It is getting colder these days, so I put the best blanket I could find on you. How are you feeling, I may ask? I already asked that, I know, but as I'm just, concerned.
The doctor registered her response and replied with,
"It's very generous of you, but it seems something isn't right, and your question is neither the time nor now to answer." The air.
Alex Doyer replied in a confused but self-confident manner. She looked over towards the window in the far left of the room as she analysed how the air could have been outside, as she tried to calculate that her guest was well looked after.
Has been cold and biting lately. Nothing that you would notice any different. Is it too cold here?
The doctor once again acknowledged her response, but ignored her question.
"Doesn't it taste of smoke and bullets?"
Alex Doyer was far from the word confused, but noticed the doctor avoided her questions yet again. She held the question in her head, but she wasn't going to snap at him, as he is new in this situation, and she was sure she would have done the same if she was in his shoes.
No, not at all. Unless you can smell what happened hours ago, which is...
The doctor interrupted before Alex could finish, as he was curious on the response and was sure it was going to be a stereotypical one.
"Is what?"
Alex Doyer started to grow impatient, but really concerned about the doctor's well-being.
Impossible. But you never answered my questions. How are you feeling? And is it too cold? And how can you smell from so far away? And who exactly are you?
The doctor grabbed the handheld black remote of the round glass table. He turned on the TV, flicked through all the channels till he got to the BBC One channel, where it played a live report on the attack and what happened so far to catch everyone up to speed. The BBC Live reporter stood outside 21 Downing Street in a dark blue suit and tie. Her hair in a blonde ponytail, she looked way above her pay grade, but sported an anxious expression, although she tried to keep smiling to attempt at staying professional.
So far, the police have found no sign of the shooter. What we do know is that someone got shot last night at around midnight. The police are labelling this as a terrorist attack. They're following up on several leads following eyewitness reports, and they are warning and urging everyone to stay indoors until the shooter is apprehended.
The doctor turned the TV off and put the remote back on the glass table, as he then started to feel what felt like a blast of radiation. He placed his hand on his head, as he felt not only this head that was hurting, but he noticed on his head he also felt a throbbing bruise.
"Ah, my head."
Alex Doyer said truthfully, but noticed it healed up better than what it was beforehand.
You've got a nasty bruise from where you fell.
The doctor replied with curiosity.
"Tell me about it. What's your name?"
Call me Alex. My full name's Alexandra David Doyer. Why did I tell you that? Anyways, how are you again?
The doctor calmly replied, being clear and slow in his voice, as he saw Alex's impatience grow massively. He found the respect to answer all his questions.
It's the doctor. No surname, no middle name. And for the previous questions, I'm feeling splendid. Is that a word you Londoners use nowadays? Sorry, 21st, not 20th century. I'm feeling great. The air is tinted due to my strong nose scent, but nevertheless, the air is as it always is. I can smell from so far away because I have a technique that I have mastered over years of training. And I'm a guest in your house.
Alex Doyer's mind became confused as millions of questions fired one after another, as this doctor did not make sense to her.
Doctor who exactly?
The doctor peacefully responded again in a slow, clear voice.
Just a doctor will do.
Alex Doyer accepted what she could be hearing is the truth, but without any evidence she can't exactly prove he was lying. Alex allowed herself to move on.
Well, I've got a free bedroom if you need to stay, then you're free to.
The doctor curiously remarked some concerns.
Are you helping me? An absolute complete stranger who's fallen down, no backwood on me whatsoever, and you lay me on this surprisingly comfortable sofa and let me sleep here.
Alex Doyer was lost for words, for the fact she did not have any reason whatsoever, and her social anxiety did not exactly help either in the situation.
Well,
The doctor started to gleam a smile as he shaked his head in laughter.
I was only messing. Humans, you never know the difference.
Alex Doyer noticed the comment as she was confused, but worry and distress also started to form in her mind too.
You talk about us like we are.
The doctor interrupted again, saying in his calm and relaxed tone. He got up from Alex's sofa, and while talking he took the decency to fold the blanket neatly. Not only that, but he had the audacity to rearrange the sofa into a peaceful and respectful order.
From another world? Yes. I'm an alien, but don't worry. I'm one of the nice ones.
Alex Doyer felt all sorts of emotions that she had not felt in a long time, but nevertheless, she went from worried to a deep, bewilderment state of mind.
One of the nice ones. So, you tell me there's more?
The doctor once sorted out the sofa into a perfect vision. He then walked to the window as he remembered his past memories of his previous lives. He remained calm and happy in his voice, although you could tell there's a sadness to it, as if all the bad memories had tumbled in with all the good ones.
More. There's millions. But don't tell anyone I told you.
Alex Doyer started to get fascinated by the idea, and then thought to say the first words to enter her head.
So, you have a gun or a spaceship like they do in the movies?
The doctor turned to Alex, looked at her eyes from in the reflection of the window next to the sofa.
I'm not the type to use a gun. I'm not a fan myself. God. Is that what they call them nowadays? Fans. Humans, so... ugh. Fascinating. Actually, I had a spaceship. A 1970s police box. It reads, Police Public Call Box. Have you seen it?
Alex Doyer was certain about one thing: she had not seen this so-called police box, but opening her mind up, she gathered more thoughts of worry and concern.
Afraid I haven't. Do you recall anything that happened before you fell? If you can't find it, you're stuck here, eh? How do you reckon you're going to get back?
The doctor remained thoughtful to the stress that ran around in his mind of not finding this box and being in a new environment. Although it was better than being in some cave alone or naked in another's bedroom with handcuffs, the doctor was really happy about where he was, but there were more pressing matters that crossed his mind that needed sorted first.
It will come to me. In the meantime, that shooting. Where was it?
Alex tried to remember the location that she had allowed herself to investigate. She concluded what was on the news was an estimate, and factoring her own research that she did. Cross-referencing that into a map of London in her head, she found a woods, but that answer was better than nothing.
Not too far, about a couple of roads down and through a forest.
Soon the doctor heard that comment, he presented a smile bigger than a kid does on Christmas Day, to then clap his hands together and say in a cheerful tone,
Brilliant.
Alex Doyer got off her chair, folded it back up, then placed it exactly where it started. Alex was baffled beyond belief at the doctor's response, as anyone in her state of mind would make the decision to not go out there and get killed.
It's a war zone out there and you're saying brilliant?
The doctor turned around while he straightened his plain black tie which hung around his neck tightly, although while he laughed to himself of Alex's impression of a war zone.
Alex. This is not a war zone. This is far from it.
Already in a confused enough state, Alex has had more questions than answers in her head. By the look of the doctor, he did not look old enough to have been in previous wars, but something in his eyes told you instantly that you could tell he had seen more than the history books led on to let you believe.
You've been in wars before.
When he heard Alex's words pose questions he had not heard for a long time, he elaborated on his previous comment. Traumatic memories of guilt flooded through his head.
I was in a war that lasted over 100 years. Everyone died. Everyone. Some remained years later, but only a few remain to this day. Your wars on this earth are like insects compared to the Time War. The war between the Daleks and the Time Lords and so many other creatures. I'm over 1,000 years old, and over the years of being in this universe, I have faced creatures beyond your imagination can even comprehend. I'm not a hero, nor the destroyer of worlds, but I'm the doctor, and I'm very good at making cups of tea.
Alex smiled at the doctor as she felt empathetic towards him. She felt the sparkle of sadness that she quickly brushed away with a finger. But after the fact, she listened. She was still confused, but on who the doctor really was.
Doctor, right.
The doctor completely missed the seriousness of tone in Alex's voice as he used his finger to point and left, which correlated with his response along with that. He sent out a friendly smile as he laughed at the sentence used.
No right or left, just a doctor will do.
Alex Doyer noticed the doctor's comment and replied,
Okay, well, be careful out there.
The doctor responded warm-heartedly again as he shed a happy smile.
When am I ever?
Alex Doyer's mind went blank, but all she could think about was a quick and cutthroat reply as she tried not to come across as rude.
I wouldn't know.
After the doctor processed the statement, it took him time, but he then realised that he had never travelled with her. It must have just been his memory playing up after so many years of travelling in time and space. He had sworn he had seen her face before.
Right, I will see you again. Promise.
The doctor always kept his promises, to some extent. But whenever he did, even if it wasn't fully, he never broke them. But something on Alex's face after he heard those words that came out of the doctor's mouth said otherwise. Alex remembered back to the times where people she knew too well had said that to her. She answered back in a sad but judgmental tone.
I've had far too many people break theirs.
The doctor, in confidence, gave Alex a positive smile. The doctor then brought his finger to his chest to cross both of his heart.
I keep mine. Cross my hearts.
Finally, she gave in as she started to believe the doctor, although after everything he had said, Alex's doubts still ran through her mind like a speed of bullet.
Okay then.
The doctor noticed Alex's tone of voice to then reassure her in his reply.
Trust me, I'll be back soon. I promise.
The doctor looked around the overgrown forest. He had followed the direction that he remembered that Alex talked about. The doctor walked his way through patches of sloppy mud, squashed grass, and half-broken leaves that had been shaken from the elongated colossal trees. Everything on the floor had been scattered and moulded together by making a wall almost over the immaculate concrete path. The concrete path itself led to mud trails of wheel tracks and footprints. Lower down the path, the doctor could make out there were a few police cars parked around an investigation team full of police officers, detectives, forensic scientists, and so much more. The doctor was stopped abruptly by the yellow police tape that was wrapped around all the trees that enclosed the area. The barricades stood up high. The doctor looked around the area, which he found surprisingly no one was there keeping guard. He decided on what he was going to do and hopped over the barricade, which without feeling any guilt or an ounce of care, he proceeded to walk down to the crime scene as if he owned the place. The doctor walked confidently in an upright posture with his hands in his pockets. The air, as expected, had a strange scent of smoke and gunpowder that only he could smell. As the doctor blended in with his surroundings, he walked over near to the cabin where there were two detectives looking at Ruby Lawrn's body. The doctor walked up behind them, his arms wrapped around their shoulders as he leaned over them as they analysed the crime scene.
Now then, detectives, what have you got here? Let me tell you this. From here, it looks like a bite, but, it's not a normal bite. No. If someone's going to bite you, it'll be brutal and cuts should be everywhere. But if this victim is only one, on the neck especially. Now what do you think of that?
Both the detectives completely ignored the doctor's overhanging hands around their shoulders but acknowledged his response. And one of them replied,
From the marks, there's no scratches, bruises, nor handprints. For those marks of that sort of bite, it could have been a big insect of sorts or something smaller.
The other detective on the right joined the could have been a silent sniper with a long range of firing. The doctor's thoughts accepted their responses. What bothered him most was a key question that whizzed around in his head that they had not spotted. He moved his head towards the detective, who exhibited a black shirt, a blue and black tie, a steel grey long coat. His face was full of stress and surprise as he presented a friendly smile, but over that was his goatee. His hair was short and blonde, his trousers matched his coat, but his shoes were plain black with laces tied firmly.
But tell me, detective?
The detective the doctor was talking to took his hand out eagerly with the utmost respect. The doctor shook back with his hand above his shoulder. They both presented beaming smiles towards each other. Adams. No Adams. The doctor pointed towards the body as he led their eyes with his finger, showing them where he wanted them to see.
But tell me, Adams, do you see anything on the other side?
Neil's mind went blank. Both of the detectives shuffled out of the way as they let the doctor in. He took his overhanging hands off their shoulders. The doctor then walked in the middle of both of the detectives. The doctor recognized he was now being heard. He now had a point to what he was saying. He filled in the silence.
No marks? Nothing?
Both detectives turned their heads towards the doctor, almost as if they had seen a ghost, but they then looked back, seeing what was only no more than the truth. There really was no mark on the other side. He then made his response more conclusive.
Exactly. Do you think a bullet can make a mark that small? Look at the bites, they're evenly spaced out. Looking at the spacing and dryness of the blood, the two bites were both bitten at the exact same time. This wasn't no monster, or a gun, or anything human. This is, well, judging by the way the bodies are positioned and the angle the body was dropped, I'm guessing the person you're looking for as well. Throughout all my journeys through time and space, only one monster makes a bite like that, and that is a vampire.
Bewildered, wouldn't even be the word for how the minds of the detectives felt as soon as they heard that response. They were deepened by the fear of the truth of what they had just heard. Amusement filled the detective's face as she chuckled from the wasted time, along with she could only describe in her mind as she denied the fact about what she heard could have been the truth, but with the other part in her mind make her believe that all this could have been an elaborate scheme. There is so much inconclusive evidence which anyone could have pulled from a hat.
Don't be wasting our time here. A vampire? There's no such thing. Only myths and legends dating back centuries ago. Made up stories.
The other detective pushed the doctor back more when he had just started to walk back. Detective spotted a professional uniform, a grey button-up t-shirt, a plain blue tie, a golden badge with a few little scratches, was pinned on the right side of the coat. Her trousers, dark blue, with her shoes, were black, but scuffed up the front. One of her shoes had collected mud from the ground, but she had a long brown coat with maroon pockets on the side, and she had straight blue hair that ran down towards her back.
And who are you exactly? No ID, no professions, nothing. You know about all this, as if you were the killer. Not long coming down to the scene, less than 24 hours into the investigation. Bit convenient, much? So tell me, Doctor, who are you? Before my officers come down here for trespassing and interfering with an investigation.
Neil Adams' comment was unheard over the doctor's and the other detectives' argument.
I think that's quite enough. We don't need to.
The doctor carried a smirk on his face as he walked backwards with his hands in the air close to his chest, as he acted almost like a protective shield.
Okay, you got me. Well done. I'm just trying to help out. I'm a passerby. I come and go.
The frustrated detective saw two nearby officers, which she loudly called out to.
Officers, restrain this man.
The detective's voice echoed as it alerted and brought to its attention the two police officers that stood either side of the single cabin door. They both moved silently without any remorse. One of them grabbed the doctor by the arms, tied them together, then locked the handcuffs tight over his wrists. With him restrained, he willingly followed the police officer in front to a car that read on the black bumper in bright blue stickered paint 009. Not that it was a significant number or it meant something in the car industry, all but the fact that was the first place the doctor was thrusted on as the officer checked his pockets. The doctor noticed the car itself was one of the officers. Like most police cars, it was a Ford make. Don't get me wrong, there was other cars down at the scene that looked in a more deteriorated condition, as they looked like they had come out of one-star repair shop. Out of all the cars and all the officers on the scene, why these two? The doctor thought as loads of questions had rushed to his head. Although not like he could have done anything else, he was being searched up, handcuffed and pinned to the bonnet of a car. The doctor made a prediction about this car. He recognised the fact the car looked pristine and well kept, apart from noticeable aspects such as its wheels were all murky from the coated together mud and leaves. This car was parked more closely to the cabin's windows, which meant they would have had a call come in, which then would lead to a single patrol car to scout the scene. If anything added up, then using logic, this must have been the first on the scene. After the search on the doctor, the officers found a half-used ball of string, a yo-yo, a long thin metal object with a small globe for a light to shine through and a pencil. The officer yanked the doctor up off the bonnet, and then one of the officers opened the door to then have the doctor what seemed like he was thrown into a vehicle. Once one of the cuffs was off of his wrist, the other cuff got linked to the handle in the corner of the car. The door slammed beside him. The doctor watched as his equipment was stashed in the glove box, which was then locked along with the passenger door. But as there was a barred metal fence that divided both of the sections of the vehicle, the doctor was stuck in a rock and a hard place. The doctor had tried to rip off the handcuffs and the handle as he pulled with his hand. After a few attempted tries, he was out of luck as it didn't work. He had another idea, which he was mixed about, but it was crazy but could work. He knew that if you dislocated your thumb, you could slide your hand out of the handcuffs. He fiddled with his thumb as pros and cons of the thoughts passed through his head as one outweighed the other. Out of nowhere, in the corner of his eye, he noticed a black streak had rushed past the window, rushed past the other end of the forest. He wasn't sure what it was, but he did see was that it had sliced through all the barks of the trees and rushed through all the leaves. It then rushed as a blur past the police car in a hurry as it dashed its way past every police officer. Each and every police officer, along with all their work partners at the scene, stood still for a mere few seconds as everything was as if it was frozen. Then, for it had to have reverted back to its present, everyone outside fell down in perfect symmetry. Then there was silence. The vampire's laughter bellowed the area. The doctor watched in despair as all the officers fell like dominoes. In anger, he kicked the barred fence as he hoped to break it, but what came of that was nothing more than a result of nothing. In the far distance, Neil Adams bolted to the car. The doctor was surprised and confused when he had arrived to the car. He figured Neil was only trying to help. He took the chance while he still had it. For Neil, the doctor's mouth movement was unavailable to decipher, but his fingers that tapped the window made the glass travel down, which aimed at the police officer that was laid dead. His skin was whiter than a bedsheet. Neil's hand skimmed the police officer's pockets. He grabbed the keys, he unlocked the car door and opened it in front of him. But a problem was not yet solved, as the doctor was chained to the handle that was sat just above the window. When Neil saw the handcuffs the way it was, he was perplexed, as in his time in the force, this did not happen. He passed the doctor the keys that then freed him from his cell. The doctor got out of the car as he passed the keys to the detective, which he then caught but dropped. The doctor then crouched. He tried to remain undetected, but he then peered his eye over the open car door, which of course had a window. This meant he could get a clear view of the scene in hand. In his eyes, what he had glimpsed was a dark streak kill its last victim before it ran back where it originated from. When the dark smoke-like streak ran back, the doctor then chased after with anger and confusion in his eyes. He wasn't the most athletic person, but he did his best as he chased after the charcoal streak. He reached not too far behind as it then just stopped. It had stopped in the middle of the forest in an open area. The doctor, not too far, caught his breath. Every intake was heavy, but if you had two hearts and had to intake twice as much, especially in a body of a human, you would understand how hard he struggled to breathe. That didn't stop him as he walked a safe distance away from whatever the creature was. All of a sudden, the image of the streak became more vivid. The doctor's face blew up with surprise. The black figure clarity came to the whole as the smoke-like body slowly faded into a long draped cloak. Her head featured elongated brunette hair that just ended past her elbows, and her mouth had white, razor-sharp fangs. The biggest feature that was more noticeable was her dark crimson eyes. The shape of her body was like any other human, but her features had mutations. She walked a few steps towards as she stepped and clapped her hands while she then gleamed at the doctor.
Well done, I've got to say, I am impressed.
The doctor's mind filled with worry and panic for the humans, as he knew all too well who this creature was, and she was no normal monster of the day. She was the doctor's royal enemy. His head rushed too many conclusions of her survival as her race died in the traumatizing event that was the Time War.
Your race died, along with the Time Lords, in the last great Time War.
Ficer's mind filled with shock, but showed a wider grin than already had as she started to toy with the doctor, as she knew what he went through all too well.
You're a Time Lord? Ha ha ha! The last one? How did it feel, having your whole race die, knowing that you can't do anything to change it, otherwise a paradox will happen? We're similar in that aspect. I'm the last of my kind, surviving and adapting to Earth. It's a wonderful world, the water, the land, the development, everything. I don't want to take over, but survive. Doctor, that's all I want.
Even though she had now got under the doctor's skin, he shoved it off and remained calm. With the passionate person he was, he felt remorse for the vampire, but as he knew his limits and what his position was as a Time Lord he remained in a fair, unjudgmental condition.
If you had came to me sooner, we could have worked something out. I'm afraid you've dug yourself into a hole, as you killed innocents. That classes under a broken law, Sector 33 of the Shadow Proclamation, and you're under arrest, Madam Ficer.
The Ficer now heard the doctor's response. She felt utter distaste in her mouth as she heard the Shadow Proclamation words spill from his lips. And not only that, the rules broken too. She couldn't bear it. She stepped closer to the doctor as her heartbeat raced intensely. The doctor took the Ficer's word into account. He made sure what he was saying was fair as he could be.
You can survive. I'll make sure of it. But you must face the judgment, for I am the doctor, the jury, and executioner. Well, wouldn't quite go as far as executioner. Not really my style. That reminds me. You also slaughtered my family, and now the innocence of this race. You killed a human being not too long ago, and now your thirst has consumed you. Look how innocent they were, and you stole a life from her. From warm and so kind to pale and cold, because you drained her dry. I understand you won't survive, but you have gone too far. I won't let you take another life of this race, so take mine instead.
The Ficer gave a wider smirk at the doctor as she went for the kill.
You can join the rest of your family.
Leaves crunched, footsteps became brasher, as within less than 5 seconds the doctor is laid on the floor from being pushed aggressively to the side. Next thing he knew, he watched as Neil's partner was turned into a stone cold shell of his former self. The doctor scrambled to his feet and scurried away from the Ficer.
No, silly boy. You're next, Doctor. I'm coming after you. Run! Run!
The detective's body went from a normal London ethnicity to a paper white in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, trembled with fear, Neil Adams grabbed the gun off the belt of the nearby police officer. He took it off safety. He then strapped the gun to his side, and in his eye line he spotted the doctor as he ran towards the car. The doctor shouted loudly towards Neil,
"Open that glove box!"
As the doctor had taken so long, Neil forgot what happened to the keys as he searched. The officer reminded him of where the keys were, and they had fallen under the car. With no time to waste, Neil rapidly got on his side and attempted to stretch his arm the furthest he could to get the keys. After a few stretches he made to get them, he then went further back, had no idea, but he had to be quick. He stretched his arm back and reached for the gun. As it was digging in and hurting his side, he laid on anyway. Once the gun was grabbed, he then stretched his arm out again, but now that his hand held the gun, he scraped the keys slightly, but he didn't give up. He had less than 10 seconds on his hands. This meant he couldn't waste time. He reached out longer and managed to scrape the keys along the ground towards him. As the gun followed behind like a guide, he reached for the keys and clenched them tight. Neil opened the car and then the glove box. The doctor rushed past Neil, searched through the glove box, grabbed his sonic screwdriver, then pointed it towards the black streak. The black streak stopped at a halt as her figure became more vivid. It showed her full form. Neil took a few steps back, but with his adrenaline one hand, he was all scared, but on the other, ready for anything as that pulsed adrenaline coursed through his body. He had no other choice. Without a second thought, he poised his gun towards the Ficer. The Ficer felt embarrassed as she thought she knew the doctor in a way no one else did.
Your guns and your toys are powerless against me, and you know that all too well, Doctor.
The doctor put his hand out to stop Neil from going any further and gave him a smirk towards the vampire. He then looked at the cabin from the corner of his eye and scanned the area beside him, then looked back towards the Ficer before she could have observed what he was planned. He stepped towards the Ficer while he whacked his sock against his hand in light tap.
It's one thing I know too well, is that, for example, let's say you have a creature called the Ficer, and let's say this little thing here, sonic technology, for instance, in the same area, it doesn't end too well.
The doctor pressed the red button on his sonic screwdriver that then made a screeching noise. In astonishment, this weakened the Ficer as she fell to the ground, almost as it drained her of her power to breathe as her breaths were heavy. The doctor ran into the cabin as he bellowed at Neil.
"Follow me."
Ficer was about to rise up. Neil, now stuck in a dilemma, had no choice. He ran towards the doctor, who had just entered the cabin. Neil just made it as he squeezed through the enclosed gap that any other day he would have fit in. In the process, he dropped his gun as he squeezed through just before the door fully shut. The doctor, with his sonic screwdriver, scanned up and down the walls, which then he looked sonic, which turned a bright red. Whenever the device retrieved a signal, it lengthened out by a few centimeters. The doctor's sonic globe then turned white as it scared up and down the door. He put the sonic away tenderly in his pocket.
That's to keep her out long enough. We need to form a plan and get us out of here.
Neil's brain was frazzled. He went queasy. He felt his leg and his whole body. What felt like what you would do if you went into cardiac arrest. The doctor noticed. He wrapped his arm around him and sat him down slowly onto the nearby sofa. The doctor then took out a test tube with a cap on it.
What happened to my partner?
The doctor interrupted before Neil finished his sentence, as he could answer his question when his safety and this plan was first off his priority list.
I'm going to answer your questions in all good time. Take this, and you'll feel better in a few minutes.
Neil, without hesitation or second thoughts, automatically took the cap off the test tube. He placed the test tube next to his lip, drank all of the black liquid that spilled out as he gave the doctor the test tube back with the cap. Neil's body at first resisted the treatment. The doctor watched his throat turn from white to a rash-like red, but faded quickly as if he was immune to that side effect.
Thank you. Doctor of what exactly? I have so many questions.
The doctor had a candle in his hand as he scanned all of the wax inch by inch. He, however, was not distracted by Neil's comment. He replied with,
I bet you do. Let's get down to basics. This vampire is called the Ficer. It can only be stopped by a supersonic wave, which, as I don't have my TARDIS, we are stuck here. We go outside those doors, we are dead meat. We stay in here, we die. Slowly, and eventually. I amplified that door, that was polymorphic. Now it is around the entire cabin, which should stop her from getting in. It still doesn't explain why the police car got skimmed past. And why here? Why this place?
The doctor opened the left windows of the cabin. He made sure they were wide open. He then quickly scrambled through the drawers, grabbed one of the nearest objects, which was a passport. He then threw it out the window. In anyone's right mind, you would think the doctor was mad, or near enough genius, as that passport hit a force field which reached around 50 foot and stretched 5 miles. The passport disintegrated upon impact. Neil Adams noticed the force field. He began to get anxious as the doctor went around the room and looked all in the cabin windows one by one.
That's bad, right?
The doctor then looked around the area as he multitasked. He flicked through one of the passports. He read the information using his fingers. They skimmed the word print. The doctor sat on a brown wooden stool, which was parked next to a beige table, and in stress he looked at Neil and gave him a summary of the situation.
Why just adding more problems onto our plate? No way in, no way out, but why here? Why is this whole place surrounding a force field? How did me and all you lot get in here if this force field disintegrates anything that's outside? Why is this cabin polymorphic? What is the Ficer doing here? Also, why did that person who died...
Neil Adams interrupted. He acknowledged the doctor was not caught up.
Ruby Lawrn.
The doctor was stressed out of his mind. All these questions that he couldn't answer and became rather like a ticking time bomb.
Why did she die yesterday? It could have happened to anyone. Any time, any place, but why now? Facts, I need facts.
Neil tried to defuse the situation as he stated a question the doctor was missing more than anything.
But instead of why, how?
The doctor took an offence to his thought process through Neil's comment, but the more he thought about the how instead of the why, it started to make all too much sense, as if it had been under his nose the whole time.
How? Oh, that makes sense. No, yes, no, yes. It all makes sense now.
Neil didn't quite understand where the doctor was going with this idea of how it all made sense, as all these events were still quite fuzzy to him, but he was keen to know just as much as him.
Care to elaborate?
The doctor made a conductive analysis from every speck of dust he had spotted in this cabin, as he knew this was all too easy. He had placed all these ideas like dots in his mind of how it all linked together, but now it made sense as if it was under his nose the whole time.
Else, judging by the content, you think it's new. But what if it's made to look that way? The floorboards don't exactly match the roof or the walls. Why is that, you ask? Well, that's because this house isn't new. It's in fact centuries old. This cabin, judging by the size and the different floorboards, with years worth of old paint, scratched but repainted time and time again. No one's going to see if this cabin's been repainted or decorated a different colour on the inside to the out, because it's just a cabin. It's not like anyone lived here. Oh, but someone did. That Ruby Lawrn, what a lonely woman, living in the cabins. But if she was that alone, why did she need all those passports? She was adventuring, you would think, or on the run. But what from, you ask yourself? I've always loved a good mystery. More of an Agatha Christie fan than a Doyle.
Neil looked over to the doctor as he remembered of how much of the case study this Ruby Lawrn has been in his life.
What me and my partner gathered is that this Ruby Lawrn isn't what she made herself out to be, especially in the newspapers and all the stories she has been in the last few years.
The doctor's smirk got bigger as the facts rolled in.
Stories?
Neil Adams was baffled at the response. His hand reached through his pocket and took out a leaflet with a picture of Ruby Lawrn at the centre stage of the front cover. He handed it over to the doctor.
Take it you're new around here.
The doctor took the leaflet Neil kindly offered. He then scanned every section of the leaflet looking for clues to find answers he needed. When he heard Neil's comments towards him, he smiled because the doctor knew if he told him about his life with fighting aliens, weather law, planets and deaths, then he knew he would have to go to the full-time therapy.
You can say that. These stories?
Stories read of this woman called Ruby Lawrn that had travelled the world to find a cure for her only son as her husband passed away in a car accident. But by the time she did find a cure, her son had passed away. Some say her son was killed. But to prove this answer, she then somehow scrubbed everything on her records, police, medical, you name it. As we can see in this drawer, she had led a double life. Maybe she wasn't travelling the world. Maybe that's what she was running from. Whatever she could have been working for.
The doctor took on board his comment but tried to look at it from a different perspective. A perspective that Neil would never thought of well until today. That was.
Plausible option. I mean, if I was her, I would have done the same. But if she was on running from Secret Service or finding a cure, or running from her nightmares, a vampire chasing it all around the universe, then land here on Earth.
That would explain why this cabin is centuries old, as it couldn't have survived World War II and all of the other catastrophic events before and after it.
The doctor's smirk widened as his hands shook in enjoyment as all the facts all added up.
Now you're getting it. This cabin, as it lands in the forest, has a convenience circuit, which is adapted to its surroundings, as that's what a convenience circuit does. Clearly, she disguised herself as human so she couldn't be detected, and led a normal life, as seen in the papers. When she was getting noticed, that must have been a sign. She could have been caught, so she went into hiding, well, back to her spaceship, which by then, the Ficer must have broken up hibernation, as every planet they're not familiar with, they have a few years rest, which means she must have come back yesterday.
Neil's mind was spun with questions about this case as it had gotten more interesting for him, but on the other hand, his head was hurt. All this stress and rushing around, something he wasn't used to. He didn't exactly not trust the doctor because he knew something was off, as the doctor knew more than what he was leading on. He just had to get it out of him.
But if the Ficer was resting, wouldn't someone have noticed?
The doctor looked at the floorboards, which were beaten down and scratched up, and had a lot of rusted down paint mixed with new paint.
What do you think the scratched floorboards are?
Neil took what he saw as facts, as the doctor had no reason to lie. If this really was a spaceship, then there was so many more questions involved.
Why would the Ficer chase this ship? What did this Ficer have against this alien?
The doctor pointed to the door with a cocky smile on his face.
You want to go ask it?
I was thinking you would have found out, considering as you ran after it and all.
You saw me running back, didn't you? Clearly didn't go well.
If all of us came in here for the investigation and not end up like that passport did, then where did the force field get here?
The doctor clicked and pointed his fingers towards Neil as if he had scored a goal.
Very observant. Oh, When I sent that sonic wave to the Ficer before it went in, that must have triggered an emergency warning around the area from the ship.
After he heard that comment, Neil's mind raced from panic to terrified. Triggered by anger, his adrenaline ran quickly once again.
Doctor, I know what you're doing, and it's not pleasant. Did my partner die out here?
The doctor looked at Neil in his eyes and looked away in guilt.
Unfortunately. I'm sorry, but we don't have much time. We can warn the deflator on. The force field, I didn't know that was going to happen when scanned ship with this device. It's called a sonic screwdriver. Tiny little thing, but does a job. Anyway, I just figured out that you already know it's a spaceship, which also explains why this place is polymorphic. It's an X-24 Superclass Star Cruiser.
Neil was still in distraught over the devastating news, but was confused by the extraordinarily unfamiliar words that he had come across before.
And that is?
In other words, a prison ship.
If this is the prison ship, where are all the prisoners? Where are all the guards?
The doctor took his sonic out of his pocket and clenched it in his hand.
Let's find out.
The doctor crouched onto the floorboards with his sonic scanned the parameters of one of the floorboards next to him. Each end of the parameter made a machine stamp-like noise that wasn't too loud, but loud enough that it made a menacing presence in Neil's mind that made him step back in fear. Meanwhile, the doctor stared in the open oblivion of the darkness through the gaps of the floorboards as he waited for even a shimmer of light or a wave of smoke to pass through. The doctor stepped back as the floorboard opened vertically.
Wasn't what I expected.
The doctor eagerly went back to see the open oblivion that was unsealed. It now revealed something you would see out of a horror movie. The doctor and Neil wasn't in a horror movie, and this was a real time. The doctor remained silent while Neil curiously said a comment.
Can you see anything?
Come see for yourself.
The doctor looked at Neil as he showed sadness on his face but remained vigilant. Neil crept up off the sofa and then crouched down next to the doctor. The dark red lights flickered from far below. They repelled into the doctor and Neil Adams' eyes, as from what they could see would be described as a wasteland of bodies mutilated, half-eaten flesh sprawled over the black metal floor, broken bones with flesh still clinging on for dear life dotted around the floor next to what was bodies. The doctor aimed his sonic at the bodies as it acted like a flashlight. He moved his hand and the sonic followed along, but with that showed more horror than Neil could only comprehend. Liters of blood oozed, then dripped from the corpse hung from the nails bolted in the walls that sat beside the carnage of bodies. Spiders that latched onto the bodies quickly ran out of sight from the rays of the screwdriver as it passed.
The Ficer did all this.
Not the MO.
Neil became puzzled by the fact both the Ficer and the doctor had known each other for so long. Clearly from a dialect they spoke, he knew the doctor wasn't going to cause any harm, but as far as he knew, it could have been a facade.
And what is your relationship with this Ficer?
The doctor, baffled by the logic of what he knew Neil saw him and the Ficer were. His sarcastic comment was a defense for the fear he was feeling deep down in the pit of his body.
Really? Not good.
Agitation was formed in Neil's mind from a long period of time. He had finally broke and had enough of the doctor's snarky, sarcastic comment. All he wanted was the truth, as he had been wrapped up in all of this. As much as he was annoyed, he was also concerned and scared for his family's well-being. For as he started playing with his ring on his finger, as he stood it up and down nervous.
Doctor, stop being smart with me and tell me. I've got a family out there. I need to know they're safe. If I don't get out of here, then...
The doctor then sonicked the floorboards as they then glowed back up again. The doctor got up, then stated his reply as he interrupted Neil before he could finish.
You're getting out of here. I'm making sure of it.
I don't see why you care. You don't know me. You don't know who I am or where I'm come from. You could have saved anyone. Why me?
The doctor, offended by the comment, stated this response in a calm and collected manner as he made his way to the chair that was still sat next to the table.
Next time someone saves you, learn to be more grateful. As a detective, you've obviously worked in the force as a police officer, so surely you should know that saving people's lives, even if it's someone you don't know, is part of their job description. If it saves someone from getting worse in their life from doing drugs, then you arrest them in hopes that they get rehabilitated through prison or other consequences. If it's the victim, they get help through therapy or family.
Neil got up, then reached in the drawer. He picked up the light-weighted item, which was a revolver. He grasped it tightly in his hand, moved the gun towards the doctor.
And the fact I was a police officer means I have full rights to arrest you on the grounds that you've now damaged property, put everyone at risk, and talked with someone who, when arrested, will be charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder.
And who's going to believe you?
His hand strung back from the revolver. Neil's eyes showed no mercy, but there was a glimmer of fear, made a part of his body unnerved, as he has never shot anyone before. But he wasn't going to show that, not one trace of it. The revolver was all ready to be used for its function, with his finger eased on the trigger. All it took, one bad slip, and he would cross the line he could never go back to.
When we bring in that Ficer, whoever she is, and then we can get a confession.
Doctor's smile became smug as he folded his legs, one over the other, and laid back in his chair. He comfortably rested his arms on the arms of the chair.
I'd like to see that. Don't think the other team of officers got very far. Besides, when you do catch her, which you won't, then you're going to have a very heavy load of paperwork on the Jadoon from the Shadow Proclamation to sort out. That's if she doesn't escape, which then would probably start chaos on its own and everything would just escalate more than it already has. And you don't want that, do you?
And the Jadoon are a group of...
base police troops of this universe.
Exactly. And once both of you have been arrested, they'll come down the station and me and them will come to an agreement. One police officer to another.
Insinuate you and the team before they do that.
And you know this how?
Oh, I've met him numerous times.
And that makes you an alien.
The doctor's smug, sharp smile got bigger as he heard that comment. He replied with,
Took you a while to notice.
Neil still had the gun towards the doctor, but his finger and mind got closer to the edge of doing something he would feel guilty about for the rest of his life. He didn't have any other reason to not do it, not as far as he knew.
You're just like that Ficer creature outside.
If I was like her, answer me this. Why haven't I killed you yet?
Because you're waiting for the opportune moment. You came down here all smart and cocky and knowing it all, and this whole situation. Then you ran after the Ficer like it was your dog. Had your wallet, and my partner goes in that forest, doesn't come back, but you come running out with that Ficer right behind you, and I don't even know why I helped you. I didn't even want you to die.
Neil's finger was looking trigger happy, but a part of the doctor knew Neil would never pull the trigger, and the fact deep in his eyes he was too scared to say.
I saw what happened on the news, and I thought, why not? I needed some air anyway.
Doctor, don't play games with me. You know something was wrong, didn't you?
Something wasn't right. Everyone's too scared to go outside. It isn't normal, not here, not London. The streets were deserted.
Everyone's been told to stay indoors till the shooter is apprehended, but at least we can say it wasn't a shooter now. But even if we did go back and the stories came out, no one would believe us.
You'd be surprised. Everything else adds up. But what I don't get is that, why did the Ficer kill everyone else, but not you and your partner, with the first attack, and dodged the car I was in?
Neil really thought about his answer when he added up and linked all the dots in his mind, like he usually did with any other case he tried to solve. He wanted to put down the revolver as a part of him just couldn't pull the trigger, but another said, Go on, go do it. Go on, do it.
We got lucky, really.
No, there's more to it.
What makes you say that?
It's too easy.
Grease spilled towards Neil's lips as the mockery that came from the doctors made the revolver, which was at his side, then went upwards as it aimed towards his head. The doctor now knew that Neil was not bluffing, and he also knew that if he got shot in the head, he would not have been able to regenerate from that, and the way Neil was, he did not want to go from a test run from that idea.
You think my partner dying is just easy?
She put it on herself because she's reckless.
You want to talk?
I do for good reason.
A fountain of tears fell down from Neil's splashed red face. He walked a few steps towards the doctor with the revolver in his hand, still aimed at his head. The finger on the trigger did not move an inch away from the firing. If anything, it was much closer.
And she didn't?
No, I didn't say that.
He stepped closer to the doctor as the gun reached just less than a meter away from his face.
You know what? Why did I even bother saving you?
Because you know deep down that if you didn't, you wouldn't be here right now. And you know that.
I suppose so. Even then, why would I help an absolute
Because
stranger?
that's what you're best at doing.
You've got a point, but even then, why?
Because I'm going to take it out of it. And without me, you'd be just like your team up there. Look, Neil, I'm going to get you out of it, I promise. You and the family will all be reunited and everything's going to be okay.
And you can keep that promise.
Will I do it otherwise?
Neil took some deep breaths as he came to his senses and put the gun to his side. He took off his wedding ring and opened up his hand out to the doctor.
I suppose you wouldn't. But just if I don't make it out, can you give this to my family? Please just take it.
The doctor moved his hand towards Neil as he closed his fingers in making ring conceal. The doctor moved Neil's hand towards him as he rejected the idea and gave him a friendly smile.
I want you to give it to him, because you're making it out of this, alive.
Neil admired his confidence and how calm and collected he always was. He needed that right now, but ran on thin ice on patience as he replied.
That's a promise. Then what are we doing sitting around here?
Waiting.
Wait for...
My well-formulated plan to form my mind and to flourish in the process, while I've got you and myself out of this mess and get this spaceship back along with the Ficer in a world where you could live, breed and all that stuff you humans do.
Leaves rustled, and so did the trees, when a screeching bellowed area outside the cabin. This was loud enough for anyone to hear, even outside the bubble, which was impregnable. These howlings startled Neil as he took a step back in terror. The doctor, however, was not fazed. He was all too accustomed with screeches from where he fought years on end with them.
What is those howlings? Are they coming from her?
Yes, that's her. She's scared.
Neil ran to the door and tried to open the door, but it was no use. The doctor got up, placed his hand on top of Neil's.
Can't we go help her? She must be so confused. This explains a lot of what's happened.
No, that's not what this is about. She should have never came here, nor this spaceship.
But it did. That means we have to work with what we have.
The doctor took his hand off to then have rummaged through the drawers, which he then replied with,
You have a point, but what is there to work with? Passports? No. Memory sticks? Neil, do you have a phone?
Why wouldn't I?
Neil passed his phone to the doctor, who took it and, with his sonic, scanned the memory stick, then scanned the phone as it made a high frequency noise towards the phone. Neil watched as loads of files and codes appeared on his phone rapidly.
Humans and their phones nowadays.
What do you have against phones?
I don't mind the phones as much. It's more the person. Once they're absorbed from the outside, in their own little world.
That's social media for you.
It's not really social, is it? All numbers and digits and codes at the end of the day.
The phone screen turned a black as everything wiped off the phone. Then the Apple logo showed up, then black, then blue screen emerged that had a loading box that was only 1/3 finished away from the filing. The whole box at the top of the screen. One word read on in bold letters, Denmax. Neil saw as all of his work got deleted, but couldn't do a single thing to stop it. He knew it was for the best, but nonetheless got annoyed.
Hey, I needed that. All my life's work.
I thought you worked as a detective.
I do. I exercise in my free time, and I have been doing it since I was younger. And all those notes were of how far I've came, plus the routine.
Keeping healthy. Good man. Sorry about your phone, but it's the only way to see if anything is on these memory drives.
It's okay. I was bound to get a new phone one day or another.
The loading bar was 10% away from filling the box. He had an eager smile on his face as he knew he was getting somewhere even with the resources he had.
No, Neil. Let's see what's on these drives.
Once the loading bar filled fully, the screen sparkled. The doctor dropped the phone in pain as it lit itself on fire. Then that fire busted into atoms. The doctor moved the phone gently with the side of his foot and revealed that the phone was completely dysfunctional.
Not getting that back then.
The doctor sarcastically remarked a response.
Sure looks like it.
Is there any way to deactivate that force field outside?
Not that I know of. Not without destroying this ship.
Who is this Ficer? And what does she want?
She's the last of her kind, just as much as I am as mine. But she's adapted here. She's learned to feed on human flesh. Before, she used to feed on blue blood on the planet of Nartic, but not this. I guess she wants to live, but killing people isn't the way to do it.
But aren't you just like her? We don't kill people, but we kill innocent life forms, animals, birds, and insects sometimes, who are just as harmless, aren't they? We strip them of their freedom, then we use them as a pig for slaughter, and the final product is that we use that for food and material on our clothing. All the while, she uses our blood for her benefit to live.
She broke the law, the Shadow Proclamation, which makes her my problem.
I get that, but can't she be helped somehow, some way?
No. That's the burden I bear. Make sure the game is fair on each end.
And how has that turned out for you?
You're one to say anything. You enforce the law.
I may enforce it, but at least I help them get better. I send them to therapy.
You're saying prison is some sort of therapy for the offenders? I don't think you realise how many people we offend a year because you have them stuck in a loop over and over again till they're dead.
Maybe they need to actually help themselves for once instead of helping everyone else. And I know all too well how many people re-offend a year.
Clearly what you're doing isn't working because more and more people are offended a year because of the loop going round and round. Besides, there are other alternatives to helping crime off the streets.
What, by driving past a shoplifter, catching them and giving them a pat on the back, and then say, well done, you did something bad. Here's a lecture, and don't do it again.
No, what I'm suggesting is for a new system to be put in place.
And what you suggesting you're going to do to the Ficer?
Well, I need to. You know, as soon as we go out those doors, she's not going to stop hunting us. She has our scent. So that exercise better pay off because you're going to need it if we're ever going to get out of here.
How do you suggest you're going to break this force field to get us out of here?
I'll find a way.
Neil placed his hands on his head as he developed a hammering headache. In addition, his face turned pale. He went into a weak and sickening state.
Doctor, I don't feel so good. I feel...
He made his way to the rugged, unclean sofa covered in old newspapers. The doctor guided him with his arms wrapped around his shoulder as it kept him stable. Once Neil was laid down, he then scanned him with the sonic screwdriver. After a few bleeps, it gave a scan that reassured the doctor of the side effects.
It's okay. It's okay. Just the after effects of the formula you got a few hours ago. Just rest.
Screeches of the Ficer
reverberated
through the forest as the darkness consumed the colossal, overhung, creaking trees in the distance. The darkness shuffled and swept past a cold mist of the dead still night. Crows scoured the branches for food. Not far away, a glooming presence that was the doctor stood there as he watched through the window, meticulously and in silence, as the black streak raced around the forest. Behind him sat the golden arched fireplace. Underneath the mantel was a fire that crackled and warmed as it blazed through the whole of the cabin. The doctor turned an eye to the right, which sat a sofa where Neil rested soundly. The morning arisen. The doctor woke up off the chair he dozed off in. He smelt the outskirts of the ship as it smoked up. He calculated they both had less than a few minutes to escape before something very drastic happened. He quickly rose off the chair, trod on all the ancient newspapers that was spilled all over the floor from off the sofa. He laid his hands on Neil's arms, shook him on the hope he would have been one of many attempts to wake him up, as the doctor had a good few in his mind if this didn't work.
Come on, wake up. Neil, come on. It's time to go.
Neil woke up swiftly as he heard the doctor's voice ripple through in his mind in a state of panic. He rose up off the sofa, shuffled to the edge, then got on his feet as quick as he could. The doctor threw Sonic from side to side. He tried to remain calm, but he decided on a quick but easy option as he looked at Neil dead in the eye, and Neil looked back confused but afraid.
It's either I unlock this door or we die now. What's your choice?
The detective was lost for word. His mind went blank as he went silent. His mind shot with thoughts of death, but deep down he knew he could either die as a hero or tell the story himself if he got out. He had no choice really in the long run. But there was no long run. There was a choice or die. But death was inevitable. But he knew if he went out with a bang now, he could taste the fresh air before he did die, and he might have a chance to help the doctor to bring down this vampire and get a promotion for it. With no time at all, he decided on a choice.
Open it.
The doctor walked to the door as he went to Sonic it. Positive he had more time than he thought, but made a calculative response as he heard the roaring sounds of the ship's engine went to combust.
No time! After me!
He sonicked the door, which then discontinued the polymorphic trance that resonated around the whole cabin. They both jumped through the window, one after the other, and then exploded in an engulfing fire that reached the peak of the force field. As it exploded behind them, they were both then thrusted further ahead of the pieces that were spat out from the explosion. That was the foundation of the cabin. Both of them landed on the ground with minor cuts and bruises from tiny shards of glass that were laid next to them. As they got up in a hurry, too far behind them was the Ficer, as she drew closer and closer to turning them into human ice cubes. With no choice, they ran directly into the forest. As they ran into the forest, the Ficer closed in. Both the doctor and Neil parted ways as they reached two paths which broke off separately. As they headed down different routes, both of them carried on and ran through the forest. The doctor noticed that Neil was not safe and shouted loudly as it echoed through the trees. All the while he tried to scan for the black streak, or at the very least, Neil through the trees.
Neil! Neil!
Branches broke one by one from the forest as it gradually got louder and louder. The doctor ran as he turned to his left. He saw the streak as it followed beside him on the other side of the trees. Sounds of gunfire emanated from the far end of the forest. The rippling of broken barks and branches got further away from the doctor as it headed towards the gunfire. Neil's voice called from afar.
Run. Save yourself. I'll hold her off for as long as I can. You were right, you know, about what you said. Now, for God's sake, run.
The doctor wanted to go save Neil. He let it go when he considered the fact he knew he had no choice. Again, he ran down the forest, headed down the few paths he then got lost. The area around him, even the sky, went quiet. His breath was the only sound he could hear above his own heartbeat, as it pulsed and thumped in his chest. He had spotted a dim yellow light in the distance, above the leaves, but he used the little strength he had and moved some of the leaves. He found something he thought would be impossible. After the doctor caught his breath, his face went from scared to excited as a glowing smile appeared. His eyes focused on the 1970s police box, but this police box was more of an aqua blue than a dark blue. It was in his time. He walked towards the box as his hand stretched into his pocket, retrieved a small, shiny silver key. He then inserted this key into the door and revealed that the box was bigger on the inside. When the doctor entered the box, the doctor struck the dark beige railing with orange, unrecognizable symbol, but to the doctor, it made all too much sense. The railings led to a 4-paneled console that featured all kinds of levers, buttons, and computer screen. In the middle of the 4-sided console sat a glass dome. Inside was a handheld orange crystal that was joined up by all kinds of tubings and wiring. The doctor pressed the red button next to the blank computer screen that faced the door. Then he pressed the lever, hand gripped it by pulling it all the way down and then pulling it all the way up again. After that, he pressed the green and blue buttons on the other side. The multitude of round circles that spaded all around the ship brightened with red light. It created a flare that then faded as the computer screens ran all kind of databases, almost like a fast presentation, and on some others had slowly gone through their presentation. Of all the monsters, starships and companions with the names written in the symbol that were also carved into the railing. The doctor bounced around the TARDIS console, flicked more buttons and levers, and more noises emitted from all different screens. But there was a different sound that came from a screen that hung above the console. The doctor checked the screens. With a big smile of amazement, he pulled the lever on the far left of his console. All the red lights turned to blue instantaneously. His crystal also transformed into a dark blue shade as it cross-faded between orange and blue. The doctor walked in a confident manner to the outside of his TARDIS. He straightened his tie, took off and flung his jacket and scarf over the rail, then patterned down the dirt on his legs and jacket. His smirk enlarged and his confidence built to a crowning state. The black streak pushed past the leaves, bushes, trees and plants as it sped grew in velocity as it headed towards the doctor's TARDIS. The doctor noticed, and in his prediction, he timed everything perfectly. He then pulled one of the levers next to the left computer screen. The cross-faded crystal turned complete blue, then orange. The Ficer was so near the TARDIS until she got cut short from the pulse that went to the TARDIS headlight, that then sent a burst of blue energy that hit the Ficer as she shot back from what looked like a mile away. She landed back first onto the floor. While she was weakened, she transformed into her normal vampire form. The doctor was shocked and surprised, but all the same, he did what he could, and so did his machine. He patted the machine as if it was a pet, just before he made his way out of his machine.
You know what, yo? Out of all things today, I didn't think that would actually work. Good girl.
The doctor, with all the cards in his hands, felt victorious as he made his way outside of the TARDIS with both of his hands in his pocket. With his head up high, his eyes like an owl, he hawked the Ficer as she went to get up. The doctor took a pair of handcuffs out of his right pocket that he then put on the Ficer's wrist. He helped the Ficer up off the floor as she then followed him into the TARDIS with no choice and in shame with her head hung low. The TARDIS door shut behind them. The blue box made a loud wooing noise as the box and its bright blue headlight faded away for a few seconds to then vanish completely as if it was never there. A bike dinged as it rushed past the lamppost beside the blue bus stop. The door swayed open with Alex on the other side. She wore dark black jeans, a pair of Nike shoes and a plain t-shirt, but over that was a jacket. Her hair was the same as before, but with red streaks instead of brown.
Hey, guess
Alex grabbed the newspaper on the side and passed it to the doctor in anger.
You're late by 3 weeks. But then again, you kept your promise.
Alex shared a smile as the doctor, after all these weeks, kept his promises. But Alex was also angered by the lateness of, as he said he would be right back, not 3 weeks late. The doctor put the newspaper in one hand, then reached for the glasses in his top pocket. After he put them on, he then read the date of the article underneath.
Yeah, sorry about the lateness. Oh, and finally got the TARDIS back. Took some work, some repairing and all. She's all good now.
The doctor passed the newspaper back to Alex, who then placed it on the stairs. She stepped outside, locked the door, turned to the doctor, and took the opportunity while she still had it.
Guessing you're travelling alone? Doesn't it get lonely? I mean, you did ask me earlier, and I mean, I've always been curious about space. Ever since I was a kid, I used to buy a Space Explorers book each week and label my whole room up with planets and all space universe news and updates with NASA. Every night I used to see the stars with my telescope I got for my 10th birthday.
The doctor smiled at the determination, but was occupied by other thoughts in his mind. Meanwhile, Alex chuckled to herself as she remembered the good memories and how it led up to this moment.
I mean, one trip wouldn't hurt, would it?
Alex squinted at the fact the doctor could turn her away and walked back to his TARDIS. The doctor heard her comment, but thought back to the previous incident 3 weeks ago where Alex helped him. He made his decision in fairness.
Oh, alright then. A favour in return for your kindness earlier.
Alex beamed in joy as she couldn't believe she got to go and see her childhood dream, but controlled all the excitement with a smile. The doctor then walked to the TARDIS. Alex followed. When she caught up, they both stood next to each other and admired the TARDIS for its beauty, especially with the sun in the sky and how it reflected off the siren off the top of the box. There was something so beautiful about it.
Tell me about this TARDIS.
Where do I start?
What does it stand for?
Time and relative dimension in space.